Let's have a look at the Die Hard Gamefan Volume 1, Issue 9. So in this issue, they are featuring the Street Fighter II Turbo that came out on the Super Nintendo. And looks like they also have some information here from the Summer CES of 1993. It looks like also some previews for Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. And along with also some Sega games like Rebel Assault, Socket, Jurassic Park, Gunstar Heroes, Shinobi 3, Bubsy, Landstalker, and some Super Nintendo previews of World Heroes, Off-World Baja, Art of Fighting, and Dennis the Menace. And we also got a strategy guide for now, what it's called Ranger X, and it looks like a look at World Heroes 2. So this is the August 1993 issue, which was at $4.95. I always thought this cover was kind of cool looking. Here we got an advertisement for RoboLesty. If you can't stand the heat, go back to cartridge games. Doesn't really show much what the game's all about, though. I don't know how effective this advertisement was. Cool game, though. So it was called CyberLesty in the previous issue, so they ended up calling it RoboLesty when it finally came out here in the United States. Looks like apparently in August of 1993. Okay, so here we have the table of contents. Summer CES. E3 and Summer CES from back in the day, God, that would have been, seems like they would have been really fun to go to. Another advertisement for Rolling Thunder 3. All right, so let's get into the editorial zone. And so now they're using this kind of weird moon, I think it's a moon kind of backdrop in the back. Let's see. Okay, so editorial zone. So welcome to issue number 9 in another editorial zone. We recently returned from the great pizza capital of Chicago and the best CES ever. Our industry, my friends, is alive and well and growing rapidly. For 4 shows now, we have been staring at the same tired Sega displays, so when we entered the conventional hall that first night and they were building a Sega City, we knew we were in for something, for some surprises. Sega of America spent our money wisely, and for the first time ever, Sega actually overshadowed Nintendo. They had the AS1, the incredible new Sonic arcade game, a huge soundstage, a dedicated activator stage, a virtual room, a whole new line of the new virtual racing, and a big old round Sonic and Tails drums hanging from the ceiling. Not to mention the 2-story office structure, press rooms, and the adjoining refreshment area. Everything, including their third-party areas, were newly designed and looking very Sega. Sega of America has come a long way in a short time. Nintendo didn't look too shabby either. They hoisted a huge Nintendo arch that led you right down the Mario Highway past 4 FX track cars and a whole new slew of Super Mario All-Stars right up to the dome, which featured the incredible 3D glasses and all light show that had Star Fox ships flying around your head while with incredible surround sound filled the air. It was great. Still, the usual Nintendo dancers were absent, and the big end really didn't have a showstopper to pump as they usually do. So Sega really stood out for the first time. A lot of the third parties really surprised us too. In January, Konami was off the floor of the show in a really big suite. But here in Chicago, they constructed a solid white structure that looked like it came out of Architectural Digest. Virgin went Hollywood with a huge Art Deco display with its own cafe that sat below a huge 30-foot high spot. Let's see. Extreme also had a great looking new display, as did Sony, Tradewest, EA, Acclaim, TTI, very impressive, and Capcom. In fact, just about all the third party looked better than ever this year. As for product, I have never seen so many quality games at a CES. Virtually everyone had a great looking title. Companies that usually show little to nothing had great looking new projects, and many of the third party companies had multiple hits. It was nearly impossible, even within the 4 days of exploration, to play it all, when normally you've seen everything worthwhile by day 2. The point I'm trying to make is that video gaming has gone from a niche to a huge industry in the last year. That was the overall feeling we got from the show. In fact, the video game portion of CES so overshadows the rest of the home electronics industry that they will soon be separating the two. Over in McCormick East, only 3DO saw huge audiences. They really belong in the main building. Bottom line, as gamers, we have a lot to look forward to in the years to come. We are standing at the threshold of a new day in home entertainment where affordable new technology is being created with one purpose: to give us an escape into brilliant new worlds in the privacy of our own homes. We look forward to bringing you the best of the home entertainment industry for many years to come. We're going to have some fun. See you next month. So yeah, it looks like things were really blowing up for the video game industry. And yeah, it was around this time, right? Because we started getting like things like, the gaming started becoming really mainstream, and that was really helped by several different factors, right? But we had obviously there was like the Nintendo was doing their thing. Sega's really starting to pump out some great games, and then also with Sonic, starting to hit the limelight here, right, where they already had two solid hits up to this point with Sonic and Sonic 2. And then we were getting some movie releases, right, and all based on video games, which again, their quality, and all, but we're getting, the upcoming Street Fighter 2. And then we had that Wizard movie and all. And so it's starting to reach into the mainstream audience and all. And so I can imagine that's just more money being pumped into the industry, which ultimately they're able to make these more elaborate shows, apparently. And it was just starting to show, right, that, hey, video games are kind of a big deal. They're, and it wasn't just Nintendo. Like, again, we got Sega as a competitor here. And, we had TurboGrafx and Neo Geo kind of doing their thing. But, and, the arcades were starting to have some pretty cool stuff too also. And the technology was just getting better. And so a lot of the stuff was just kind of a showstopper, right? And it made people look. Where it started turning just some casual people in, where they were starting to put money into the video game industry. So yeah, it was an exciting time. Let's see, for most wanted top 10. So number 10, for number 1 was Star Fox on the Super Nintendo. Number 2 was Flashback on the Genesis. Number 3 was Sonic 2 on the Sega Genesis. Number 4 was Cool Spot on the Sega Genesis. Number 5 was Streets of Rage 2 on the Genesis. Number 6 was X-Men on the Genesis. Number 7 was Street Fighter 2 on the Super Nintendo. Number 8 was Fatal Fury on the Genesis. Number 9 was Echo the Dolphin on the Genesis. Number 10 was Fatal Fury 2 on the Neo Geo. And for most wanted, so number 1 was Sylphid on the Sega CD. Number 2 was Street Fighter 2 on the Sega Genesis. Number 3 was Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Super Nintendo. Number 4 was Sonic CD on the Sega CD. Number 5 was Final Fight 2 on the Super Nintendo. Number 6 was Final Fantasy 3 on the Super Nintendo. Number 7 was Final Fight City on the Sega CD. Number 8 was Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo. And number 9 was Battletoads on the Super Nintendo. And number 10 was Phantasy Star 4 on the Sega Genesis. And so here we got still an advertisement for Mortal Kombat. Prepare yourself. Okay, we're having this odd little glitch here again. Okay, let's see. So here we got some tricks here for Splatterhouse 3, Pocky and Rocky, Batman Returns, a level jump. Wings of Thunder, Fatal Fury, and Final Fight. Advertisement again for that rock and roll racing game. All right, so here we go into the viewpoint. So for this month, Skids pick. So I play games for fun, period. Chuck 2 makes me laugh and has all the color graphics and special effects I could hope for on a cartridge. Sergeant Gamer Zombie is my hands down winner. I've been playing it for 3 weeks solid. While it hasn't taken a hold of me like Zelda, it comes close. And Tom Slick's pick, I've got to agree with the Inquirer and go with Turbo all the way. Capcom knows what I crave to play. Feed me. And the Inquirer, so is there any doubt? Oh yeah, baby, you know it. You know it. When the Street Fighter 2 show is in town, the Inquirer firmly planted at center stage. Perfection. Okay, so there might have been a little bit of a weird break there in the video. And that's from when I believe I was just going over the each editor's picks there for Game of the Month. I had to stop. Something came up, so I had to stop recording and all. And my intention was to finish later that day, but here we are almost a week later where I'm finally getting around to finishing this. So I'm just going to combine the videos together, and then so there might be a little bit of an odd break there. But anyways, let's kind of get going here. So for Chuck 2, Son of Chuck. So this was a pretty popular game this month, at least with this editorial staff. So we read one of the reviews here. So never in my wildest dreams did I expect a sequel this good to the one-sided Chuck Rock. Baby Chuck has twice the game or the play mechanics and great new special effects. And now I hear a CD version may be on the way. Core remains superb on the Genesis. And yeah, Core was doing a lot of good stuff during this time, specifically more on the Sega Genesis. My understanding, I think the main dude behind Core at this time, his name was Toby something. And now this is going to come later when Tomb Raider, we start talking about Tomb Raider. But at that time, though, the guy's name was like Toby, I believe. I could be wrong on the name, but he mentioned something about where he liked working with, I don't know if it was specifically the Saturn or Sega. So he had a bit of a love for the Sega, right? And so, yeah, the Core definitely put out a lot of cool stuff on here. And the Son of Chuck game looks like it was a pretty fun game. I haven't really played this one myself. I played a little bit of the first one, Chuck Rock, and it seems like a fun little game, but haven't really messed around with them too much. So maybe it's these two games I should give more of a shot at. Both of them did end up coming out on the Sega CD, though, and I haven't heard too much about them. My assumption is just that it's the cartridge game with maybe a few little extra cinemas, voice acting, better music, and all, but either way, though, they both seem pretty cool. And yeah, I remember this Son of Chuck one was pretty well praised, at least back then in this magazine. But then Robo Leste. So this game I have a lot of fond memories of. Like I said before, I owned this game on the Sega CD. For some reason, we picked it up. I think maybe based off of this review, and then also how they were talking about the soundtrack. So my brother and I at the time were really getting into techno sound music. And so whenever we would see or hear that something had techno music in it and all, we were trying to always buy. Oh, excuse me. But I'll read one review here. So the one that got 88%. So this is one great shooter. The graphics are very detailed, and the game has the great gameplay that most shooters are missing. While there are tons of animation sequences, the most impressive features of the game are its length and difficulty, which is all top notch. Yeah, I do. It is a bit of a difficult game. I know I beat it back then, but I guess I just don't quite recall how difficult it was. It's been a minute since I played this game, and I used to play it quite a bit back then. But yeah, I do remember liking this game a lot. It doesn't really show off too much of the Sega CD's powers. There's a bit of scaling. So, like, for example, when these ships are kind of coming in, you'll see them scale in. But nothing too crazy. But it's a pretty well done shooter, and very much, like I said, in the line of like Musha, which is a really popular Genesis shooter also. General Chaos, I'm not too familiar what this is here. It looks like it was some game from EA. I vaguely remember like seeing the screenshots of it. But Rocket Knight Adventures. So here's one that definitely one of my favorite Sega Genesis games. So I'll read these reviews here. So what can I say? Konami does it again. The new character is great, although a bit too cute, and the game is loaded with variety. Some of the special effects left me speechless. I look forward to many more Rocket Knight Adventures. We only got a few more, but we did get some sequels. I felt none of them were really on par though with this one here, though, but they tried. Let's see. The next review says Rocket Knight is simply a great game. Sure, it has all of the bells and whistles that you've come to expect from Konami products, but it is a sheer joy in playing the game that makes Sparkster and company a must-have. Should end up as one of the top games of 1993. So Sparkster is way cool. I really had fun playing this game. In fact, after I beat it on normal difficulty, I was coming back to it, determined to beat it on hard, the true sign of a great game. Konami has made my job a pleasure once again. And last one here gave it a 90%. So Rocket Knight really delivers the goods. The FX in this game really blew me away. When you couple the graphic quality with the varied game mechanics or play mechanics, you have another top shelf game from Konami that guarantees a good time for all. Yep, Konami and Capcom, both of them were just outputting a lot of good games at this time. It always seemed like if it was a game from them, you could expect some level of quality. But Alicia Dragoon, so this one here, I never really played this game too much, and I want to say that I think they probably have it on here because it's their came from the gate or the graveyard, like, looking back at a classic game. See, but I'll read one review here. So this game loses nothing over time. If it came out today, it would still be considered one of the best. Game Art's sole action title for cartridge is a unique and challenging game full of great graphics and awesome color. Dig one up if you don't own it. Okay, so yeah, so there it was like their classic game. But yeah, I do want to try this game at some point. I played a little bit of it, and I like the concept of it and all. It's just it was a bit hard. I didn't get very far in it, but definitely something that I feel like I could be interested in. But then we go to Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So this is the second time that Street Fighter has come out, or Street Fighter 2 has come out on the Super Nintendo. So this is without a doubt the best home version of Turbo you could ever hope for. It's lightning fast, controls perfect, and delivers 100% of the arcade original feeling. I don't specialize in fighting games, but I know a perfect translation when I see one, and this is it. Hyper fighting is a near pixel for pixel translation that is going to have the million of Street Fighter 2 fans out there waiting in line at EB once again. For those fans, this game is a 99, no question asked. Capcom has given the people what they want, and they've done it to perfection. So this guy gave it a 98. Wow. So thank you, Capcom. I'm now set for the next year. Hyper fighting is perfect, and it was worth the wait. Super NES owners who long for the original are going to go gaga for this one. For me, this is what gaming is all about. And then I do believe the Inquirer, was it? Yeah, the Inquirer, he gave it 100. So he seems to be like the fighting game expert. So this new 20 meg version of Turbo for Super Nintendo is the closest home translation I've ever seen yet. Everything from the voice to the music has been perfectly translated. All of the 12 characters look and play identical to the coin-op. Perfect translation if you don't count the missing bonus stage. I was missing a bonus stage. Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good port. The Super Nintendo and the Genesis both did pretty impressive ports of Street Fighter 2. Nowadays, when I look at them, I mean, it's definitely. I remember back then thinking that the home versions were a lot more closer looking to the arcade. But now that I've played them both side by side, they were, like the characters are smaller and all, and loses some detail and all. But back then, I mean, they were definitely very good ports and really captured the experience of the arcade, right? That you can play at home. The zombies ate my neighbors. So let's see. So I'll go over the top rated review here. So Zombies is a very unique, addictive game. The combination of gaming genres uh, that makes use of ensure that you. Oh God, am I reading that right? You will come back to zombies again and again. In any way that you can judge a game, it sparkles, graphics, sound, difficulty, control, you name it. The zombie delivers, and it's a must buy and an instant classic. Yeah, great game. But then we had Street Fighter 2 for the Turbo Graphics. I'll read this one here. So the development team for this version of Street Fighter 2 must come from another world because these guys are not human. The music is tiny and slow in spots, but other than that, this 20 meg card grabbed me and shook me hard. I can't believe that this is 8-bit. Hats off to TTI. And here's hoping that it makes it across the pond. So it didn't. It didn't come over here, but I've played a little bit of this before in emulation, and yeah, it is pretty stunning. It is a very impressive port for sure. Then we got Splatterhouse for the Marty. If you like Splatterhouse, you'll love this version. The Marty has done another perfect translation that has to be played to be believed. Basically, there are no flaws with this version of the old coin-up classic. True perfection. And then we have World Heroes 2. So yeah, so I mean, they couldn't quite match what Street Fighter was, but they were definitely carving their own sort of audience, though, with the variety of different fighting games that they were doing, and they were really good. They just again weren't quite on the level of Street Fighter, but they were still pretty impressive, though. But Game of the Month, so Street Fighter 2, and well deserved, I'd say. For me personally, I would have picked Rocket Knight Adventures, but I understand how big Street Fighter was back, or Street Fighter 2 was back in those days. And that would be good. There was a really good port for the Super Nintendo. Alien 3. And then we got The Adventures of Monitor again. Just causing destruction. Rockadoom. Thanks. Here's a copy of Landstalker and a bag of gummy bears. Bless you, my child. I mean, that would make me pretty happy too. Some more ads here. How much were the games back then? Let's see. Oh, $79.99 for Street Fighter 2. I mean, games were kind of expensive back then too, for sure. $58.99 for Tecmo Super Bowl. Or NBA, I'm sorry, Tecmo Super NBA basketball. $49.99 for Mario Kart. $129.99 for the Sega Genesis. Hmm. I mean, it's crazy, right? With where game prices are at now, because we can look back here and all and look at these old ads, and yeah, for sure. I mean, the games were expensive there too. I think now the reason there's a lot of pushback is because for a while we were accustomed to a more standardized pricing structure. Back then, it was just kind of the Wild West. I mean, games tended to hover around 50 to $60, give or take, within that range. But then you would get these really expensive games, and all the games that had more megabytes in them, if it was like an RPG and so forth. Nowadays, I think that the pushback is because the baseline for games was $50 for such a long time, and then it's been slowly increasing where most of the major games right now are costing $70 now, or and so now is it going to go up to $80 now? Is it going to go up to $100? And so I think that's where some of the pushback is on it. But yeah, for sure. I mean, don't make no mistake. Games were expensive back then too. It's an expensive hobby. However you want to look at it, right? Gaming can be a bit of an expensive hobby. But here we got Mortal Kombat. So this is a preview here. So I remember being pretty excited about this, that it was coming out on the Genesis. And yeah, let's see. So before we get started, let me make one point. Mortal Kombat is the most successful in terms of cash and slot coin ups in Street Fighter 2. Mortal Kombat is a freaking awesome one-on-one fighter, where you can choose one of 7 arrogant warriors and stride into an incredibly lethal tournament where blood flies and terror awaits the unfortunate loser who will ultimately have part of his anatomy torn out or blown off. All the while, Shang Tsung, a powerful wizard but an old bearded looking part, looks on. The old geezer can morph into any of the characters and utilize their powers, which whenever he wants. He's one badass senior citizen. However, before you meet him, you'll engage in 7 other fighters, and then 3 teams of 2 and 1 on 1, heads exploding, lung tearing battle. Oh, and almost forgot, there's Goro, a closing salesman's nightmare. He's half human, half dragon, and if you're not totally familiar with your character, he will quickly pummel you into oblivion. Quarters or cartridge? A Mortal Kombat JAMA kit, cabinet not included, will run you around $1,800, or about 7,200 quarters, while a really good 60 meg Genesis version will run you about 250 quarters. $70. See? I don't know why I'm feeling to tell you this, but here it is. But there it is. I guess its value, man. Probe and Acclaim are bringing you one healthy version of Mortal Kombat. Censor this. I don't know. I must have slipped and hit the buttons just right because I heard a voice, and then, like magic, there was blood and death moves in the game. So they spur instead of spray. I still blew Cage's head off. Question and answers. I'll ask myself questions like a schizophrenic to answer yours. Are the characters the same size as the original coin-op? Yes. No, I don't think that's correct. Are they digitized and well animated? Yes. Yeah, I mean, the animation was okay on it. Are the backgrounds as detailed and animated? About 80% yes. I'd maybe go more for like 70%. Is the music good? For a Sega cart, definitely yes. It's awesome. And yeah, the music was pretty decent for the Sega. Is the voice there? You get fight, get over here, excellent, and finish him. At least in the version we previewed. And finally, are the blood and death moves in this version? Well, yes and no. As I said before, I somehow slipped, apparently at just the right time, and accidentally found this code that gives you blood and death moves. However, they are toned down a bit from spray to spur, but still look way cool and definitely get the job done. So there you have it. I believe next month actual percentages will be given. You can be confident that they will be quite high. So yeah, when you compare it to the arcade, I mean the characters aren't as detailed, and they're not. I really don't think that they're as big. I'm pretty sure that the arcade Con-Up had bigger characters and all. Maybe back then they just, it's not like Digital Foundry is nowadays, right? And all where they can have things side by side and all that and do a bunch of analysis. But yeah, it's not quite as detailed, but it still definitely captured the gameplay though of Mortal Kombat for sure. But then we got Socket here, which is a Sonic clone, but a pretty decent one though. I remember renting this game and having some fun with it. And you can see there's a lot of like things or areas where you can go really fast in this game. Jurassic Park has some pretty decent digitized graphics in some spots. Like the T-Rex there, right? And all looks pretty impressive. Excuse me. And it's not a bad game. It's kind of fun. Chuck 2, Son of Chuck. Yeah, really colorful graphics. I mean, sometimes the Sega Genesis could really do some impressive colors. I guess just depended on the developer and how they were able to utilize the hardware. But yeah, seems like a fun game. And my beloved Rocket Knight Adventures. Since we previewed Rocket Knight last month, many changes have been made, and now a great game is even better. One thing I can say for sure, Sparkster is a hit. Konami has added all the necessary ingredients to create a unique new environment for their unique new character, Sequel Power. The Sparkster, as a Rocket Knight, Sparkster can power up and loft into the air on high purchase. This helps create the incredible play mechanic incorporated into the game. Mastering this technique is the only way to guide Sparkster through the many complex and multi-directional levels. Sparkster can also fly, which creates yet more versatility, as many shooter elements have been added throughout the game, along with some airborne surprises. Where are we? The look and feel of Rocket Knight goes from bright forests and caverns filled with reflective lava to deep, dark, mechanized levels where the eerie look of the hideous enemy pigs loom in the architecture of the backgrounds. The graphics are first rate, and of course, the playability is flawless. If I could wave my magic wand, the Rocket Knight team pulled out all the stops to bring you some eye popping special effects like mirror images that mimic your every move. First on Genesis. Incredible warping effects, and many other graphic tricks which surprise you throughout the game. They truly work magic on the Genesis. Let's see. The music is also excellent. In fact, you can already tell that Konami games have their own unique sound on the Genesis, and it makes it sound great. Will I meet new people? Oh yeah, the small ones will burn their butts trying to stop you. Let's see. Get by them and get ready to. Oh my god, I can't read. Get by them and get ready to meet some full screen bad guys that can't wait to squash you like a tin can. The bosses in Rocket Knight range in size and constantly change to suit each level, and believe me, they are mean. Find a pattern and do it perfect, or your lunch. How long will I be gone? Well, that depends on the difficulty you select. The game itself is not timed, and the levels are pretty long, so enjoy it all. I'm sure that once you finish Rocket Knight, you'll find yourself going back constantly, as we have, until you master, and then you'll want to still play it. This new game has got it all. Unique, varying play mechanics, great graphics, lots of special effects, and huge bosses. Konami does it again. Seldom do games this good come along. So grab this one as soon as it comes out and have some fun. It's on the Sparkster. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite third-party Sega Genesis games. It's just hella fun. The level designs, the action to it, the varied gameplay mechanics. Sparkster just feels really good to control. And yeah, just a great game overall. But we got Ranger X here, so now it's called Ranger X. So I'll just read this little part here. So last issue, we brought you a preview of the newly released import title, X-Ronza. At that time, we mentioned that if Sega of America showed us a US version at the CES, we figured they would. We'd be back with more. Well, X-Ronza was at the show, although tucked away in the vast Sega displays, as were Sega's two other best games, Gunstar Heroes and Sylphid, and is now part of Sega's strongest summer lineup ever. Enjoy the ride. You don't rush through Ranger X. You must study your craft, know your enemy's weakness, and familiarize yourself with each level to win the game. It's programmed to perfect, and you should and will play it over and over. Flicker free. The US version is slightly different than Gao's original. It cut off. In X-Ronza, the explosions are so huge, needed for dramatic effect, that they cause some flicker, and when you shot up a hole digger in the first time, it spewed out a bunch of boulders. Now the explosions are smaller and the boulders are few. It's all pretty much flicker free, but personally, I prefer the dramatic effect the import provided. Count the days. Ranger X is set for a September release. Until then, we'll bring you these helpful playful strategies, or play strategies. Pictured below is level 2, the really first complex level. Ranger X is a fantastic game. In fact, I consider it among the top 5 Genesis games of all time. And if you're looking for an action game shooter you can sink your teeth into, so will you. I can't read apparently. All right, so Robo Leste. Yeah, it's a great game. Great shooter, cool little anime cinemas too. Also was hella cheesy acting, but still fun. I kind of remember the last boss on this, but there's a lot I don't remember. But I do remember beating it though. Age 3 Firehawk. Yeah, so this is another game that I really enjoyed on the Sega CD that we did own. It was kind of sort of open worldish. Only you're flying in a helicopter. It was kind of a big deal back then. And also from Core. Gunstar Heroes. Yeah, I mean, this game ended up becoming one of my favorite Sega Genesis games. Also, it's just a good example of what the Sega Genesis was so good at doing: fast, action-paced gameplay. Just a blast to play through. Really enjoy this game. This scene right here, the effects on it and all are really cool. And of course, Landstalker. So this is like when they're previewing the American version now. So previously we had looked at the import, so this is the American version that they're previewing. Yeah, great game. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite games of all time. I've said it before, but slightly prefer this over A Link to the Past. Very slightly, but I still do. I know it's maybe a hot take, but I was a Sega kid. And Shinobi 3. So let's read this here. So I've talked about it before, right? And all where they reviewed a version and then they re-reviewed it. So let's read this and see what information we can get about them. Whoa, deja vu. Didn't we review this one back in issue 3? As a matter of fact, we did. But since then, Sega has all but scrapped that concept, which was, by the way, a really good one, and almost totally reprogrammed the game. I guess because the original was so strong, Sega of America was jeez, I can't. It's kind of hard to read some of this text. Wanted this to second sequel. Wanted the second sequel, Shadow Dancer, pale in comparison to the absolute best. Normally, game delays are dreadful as rush hour traffic on a sweltering LA freeway, but when the reasons are as noble as this, I'll gladly wait. Bottom line, Sega of America has made one hell of a game. If you played Revenge of Shinobi, undoubtedly, you will immediately go to the option select, set your shurikens to double, and take a big swig of your Pepsi. No plug intended. And wait a few seconds for the familiar infinity trick to turn on or to appear. No dice, double jumper. Your Shuriken shower has been taken away. That is until we dig up a code. So for now, you must use them wisely. But just in case you run out, Sega added some excellent new moves to Joe Masashi's repertoire: a downward kick that stabs the opponent, and when master can be used in sequence, and a running slash that looks freaking awesome, and some great toe-to-toe knife play. Joe also hurls himself up and off vertical ledges and grapples the ceiling anywhere he can reach it. Overall, Joe remains the most nimble and finely drawn action figures in the video game arena. Sega does it better. So how do you make a sequel better than the original that was an instant classic? Well, to my knowledge, only Sega and James Cameron have this incredible foresight. What Sega of America and the development team have done is whip out just about every cool effect and play mechanic, roll them into one game, and make it work. You notice this everywhere in the game. The backgrounds in every level are well drawn with extra attention to detail, and layer upon layer of scrolls are used everywhere. Jesus, is hard to read. They can be. The enemy characters, which consist of rival ninjas, huge samurai, and lots of military-looking types, are also drawn very well, and some of the bosses will blow you away. In the original Genesis title, everyone thrilled to the deadly waterfall, the busy freeway, and the violent ocean, just to name a few. These types of levels, which required pinpoint accuracy, were new and exciting and helped Revenge of Shinobi earn its worldwide acclaim. Now in part 3, the programming team has dug deep and brings you even more, and maybe even better, new ideas in game design. In level 2, the fun starts when Joe comes out riding a horse complete with a sample galloping sound and a great animation. And then in level 4, it's wet and wild as Joe appears on a jamming ski that launches off ramps to grab power-ups and attach to his feet, allowing you to jump. Uh, oops. Off surfaces and nail hovering enemies with shuriken attacks. This level also has dynamite tunes, as does the whole game, that stick in your memory long after the game is over. There are also several vertical levels that express new creative gameplay. Shinobi is a complete action experience. The verdict: any jury of gamers would find Shinobi 3 guilty. Guilty of keeping you up on the edge of your bed with your earphones on for many nights. From start to finish, this is a flawless game which incorporates everything a good action game needs to stay in the hearts and minds of gamers everywhere for years to come. Therefore, I hereby sentence you to solitary confinement. Just you and Shinobi 3. Return of the Ninja Master. Sorry, I'm a little off on reading today. I guess I'm kind of tired, but yeah, I mean, I do enjoy this game a lot. I think it is very cool. I still prefer Revenge of Shinobi. I just like the overall vibe of that game more. But this is definitely a great game. Definitely one of the better ninja games out there. Um, and yeah, it was just a blast to play through. Really cool game. I do miss Yuzo Koshiro's soundtrack though. Whoever did the soundtrack to this one, it's good. It's a fine soundtrack. It's just, Revenge of Shinobi and Yuzo Koshiro, it was just on another level though. But still a great game. General Chaos. And then we got this 2020 Super Baseball game. So this is a port from the Neo Geo, I believe. Right? Yeah. The Simpsons game. I can't say I'm a big fan of The Simpsons and all. I mean, I certainly don't hate them. I just I never really watched them. Let alone plays. Well, I did play and beat the Simpsons arcade game, the beat 'em up game. That was fun, but other than that, I haven't really messed around with any other Simpsons game. Bubsy. This game actually just recently got released on the Nintendo Switch Online service. Speaking of which, kind of completely off left field, but they just also announced that Luigi's Mansion is coming out on the Nintendo Switch Online for the GameCube on October 30th. So that's kind of cool. I was hoping it would come out a little earlier. I would assume it was going to come out around this time because of Halloween. But yeah, it's coming out on the 30th. So that's cool. Anyways, Rebel Assault. So a game on the Sega CD. I don't know much about this one. But it's Star Wars, so if you're a Star Wars fan, probably worth checking out. Boxing game. Never did play this one. I was a big fan of the Sega Sports one, the one from Sega. But this one I'm not familiar with. All right, and we got some previews here. So Dragon Slayer fans can start getting ready for an November release of a nearly perfect translation by Sega CD for the Sega CD by ReadySoft. We got a peek at the CES, and this game looked awesome. I mean, Dragon Slayer, it's a classic for what it is. Talking about Virtual Racer, that was already being previewed. That they were able to make it run and play pretty good on the Sega Genesis, even though it's pretty choppy nowadays, right? And all was still impressive for sure. So Treasure, so they made this little Ronald McDonald game, which is actually not that bad, considering that it's a game from McDonald's or about McDonald's, anyways, or Ronald McDonald. All right, so we're talking about Sega's or Sonic City here. So a release date has finally been set. Sonic City will be available in Japan in late September. In New Time Attack, Sonic arrives on a peaceful planet, but he can't find any creature. Something's up. The opening animation will knock your socks off, and the music is pure magic. Yeah, about the music. Well, we'll discuss that more when we're reading the review on it. But here's this troubleshooter game. Haven't played that, but looks kind of cool. Some advertisements here. All right, so now we get into the Super Nintendo. Okay, so Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo. It seems that one of the hottest topics recently in the world of video games is censorship in general and the application of it in Mortal Kombat. Since this topic has been discussed to death, and since there was no blood to be found in a Super NES Mortal Kombat used for this preview, we shall slide past that and instead concentrate on the game itself. Now, I know that blood and guts are synonymous with Mortal Kombat, and that is the main reason that most of us play it. However, after you've seen everything there is to see, there has to be still a good game left for over to keep your interest high. Although I am a Street Fighter II purist, I couldn't help but be impressed with the overall presentation of this game. All of the screams, yells, grunts, moans, and groans, moans and groans are there, perfectly intact and seemingly direct from the arcade, as are all of the Shang Tsung comments during a fight. The only sample speech that I noticed was missing was when Shang Tsung says flawless victory, and instead of get over here or Scorpions get over here, he says come here. No biggie. The quality of the music is Mortal Kombat is fantastic and might have gotten my vote for the single best feature of the game. But the Saint of the Immaculate Digitization had something to say about that. I don't know how they pulled it off, but the graphics, shadows and all, are fantastic, closer than even Street Fighter 2 to the arcade. Being that this is only a preview, we shall dissect this game further in next month's Mortal Kombat review. But I can really already tell you Kaylee will give it a thumbs up. So, well, I'll save any comparisons and all that for when they review the games, actually, which I believe will be next month. But yeah, graphics wise and music wise and all that was definitely pretty close to the arcade. And Street Fighter 2 Turbo. We're gonna go over some combos here. Yeah, pretty Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat. Definitely big heavy hitters in the fighting game genre back then. Hmm. But then we also have Clay Fighter. Bit of a different kind of fighting game. And World Heroes for the Super Nintendo with a pretty good port. This one was by Sunsoft. And Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Such a fun game. I haven't gone too far into it. It is kind of hard, but definitely worth playing. Super Off Road, the Baja. I haven't played this game. Seems like the would have had some pretty decent 3D mode 7, I believe. Okay, so makes liberal use of mode 7 with huge characters and scaling hills that to this point have not been possible within the confines of mode 7. Huh. Sky Blazer. Yeah, I remember them talking pretty good about this game. They made it Sony, huh? Hmm. I did miss out a lot of like more niche Super Nintendo games. Again, it was more the Sega Genesis that I really explored the library on that system. But on the Super Nintendo, I'm pretty familiar with a lot of like their main games, but games like this and all, they just kind of went by my radar. So I haven't messed around with a game like this. Art of Fighting. Looks like it was a decent Super Nintendo port. Oh, excuse me. This game called Plock. Magic Boy, Dennis the Menace, and the Super Nintendo version of 2020 Baseball. Shit. This is what we thought baseball was going to look like, huh? It's kind of weird when you look back like on the 80s and 90s on how they thought that the future, like our time right now, would look like. I mean, we have some cool stuff, but, not quite what they thought. Maybe in some things, but no, I don't know. Septentrion? I don't think I've ever heard of this game. So it looks like it's kind of like Prince of Persia and Out of This World. Interesting. Let's see, but they're talking about Aladdin. So the Super Nintendo got an Aladdin game from Capcom. Very different from the Sega Genesis version, and pretty good in its own right too. But Super Mario All Stars. So the long awaited Super Mario collection looked and played amazing at the recent CES. In fact, look out for a few new surprises. Remember -1? In fact, it's 16 meg with all the new 16-bit graphics and sound. Will have Mario Fanatics up for a solid month. Look for a gnarly review in next month. Gamefan. Yeah, great collection. Mega Man X. So they're talking about Mega Man X here, and then also Empire Strikes Back. So from that Star Wars series. And what's this? Loracles or Gem Power? I'm not sure what that is. Advertisement, and then Turbo Tunes. So they got a John Madden football CD. That's right. I forgot that the Turbo Duo CD, got a John Madden game. Hmm. Seems like it was okay. Preview for a cotton game. Street Fighter 2. Yeah, pretty impressive port. Never came out in the States, though. I don't think it would have helped much for the TurboGrafx success, but, would have been cool still to get it over here. But if not, there's always emulation. Magic J's, FM Towns Marty. Yeah, it looks like a pretty arcade perfect port of Splatterhouse. It was cool back then in this time whenever we could see like an arcade perfect port of something, right? Um, it was just cool because again, the arcades were always like the highest, and what that could be done on video game graphics. So to see an arcade perfect port, it was just a cool experience. I never got to see this back then on the FM Tau Marty, but I can imagine it was pretty cool to see. I haven't beaten this game yet. I've been part 2, but I haven't beaten the first one. I should try to do that sometime. And we're talking more about the 3DO here. Yeah, I mean, just look at these screenshots again and all, back then, right, and all. It was just looking into the future. And we're looking at screenshots here of like 3DO Road Rash, which was actually a pretty fun game. I do enjoy that game. Crash and Burn, Demolition Man. I remember them talking kind of highly about that game there. Neo Geo section. So we're talking about World Heroes 2. Hands-on portable. Looks like they got some games here. Portable gaming during this time kind of eludes me. It wasn't something that I really got into back then, so I'm not too familiar with a lot of these games. Josh and Sam. Who is this by? I did see this movie. This was a blast. I got to go to the Back to the Future ride in Universal Studios. There in in Hollywood. That was fun. That was a real blast to go through the. I don't think I ever did a King Kong one there, but the Backdraft one there, that was kind of crazy. The ET one too, also. Yeah, that was so much fun back then. Yeah, Summer CES. There's going to be this first part here. So this year's Summer CES was perhaps the biggest ever for the video game industry. A large emphasis was placed on new cutting-edge technologies such as Virtua and 3DO, while as a whole, there were simply more good titles than ever before. It seemed like just about every company had something to brag about. We've compiled, as well as possible, all the games of this great show for you to use as a guide on what's coming in the months to come. Some of the screenshots aren't the greatest, as many come from slides, etc., but this should give you a good idea of what we saw. The logos in the shots represent what system the title will be available for. So Capcom for the Super Nintendo. So yeah, so they had Mega Man X, Aladdin, Eye of the Beholder, and Super Street Fighter or Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper. So they had a pretty solid outing. Sega had some good stuff. So Toe Jam and Earl 2, which is pretty cool. Jurassic Park, Sylphie, Spider-Man CDs, Sonic Spinball, Ranger X, Aladdin, Shinobi 3, World Series Baseball, NFL 94, Eternal Champions, and Gunstar Heroes. That's a pretty solid lineup overall. This game, I haven't really messed around with it too much. Eternal Champions, but not the greatest. But everything else is pretty solid game, though. Let's see. So Extreme. So I had some games. Some kind of cartoon games here, along with a tennis game. And Super Nintendo. What did they have going on? So Super Mario All Stars. So the Yoshi Safari, that was for what was it called? The Super Scope? Because what was it? The Sega had the Sega Menacer and Super Nintendo the Super Scope, I believe. More or less the same concept. I don't think either one of them did particularly well. I think that's what this Yoshi Safari game is for. Sony. So Sony has some things going on. So a little bit that I understand. So I could be wrong on this. So let's see. This would have been in what, 1993. So the deal between Nintendo and PlayStation, Sony PlayStation, had already floundered out. There was a period of time where Sony did approach Sega at one point to potentially work together, but ultimately Sega of Japan backed out of that. But I think during that stretch there is where we started seeing some Sega CD games on from Sony because I think that they were starting to experiment, right, and all with CD games. And so we got games like let's see, Dracula CD, Cliffhanger, Last Action Hero. I believe all of those are from Sony. Well, actually, yeah, okay. So Sony had a variety and unique lineup. Yeah, so all these games are from Sony here. Um, yeah, and then Konami. They have Rocket Knight Adventures, Castlevania Bloodlines, Zombies Ate My Neighbor. So they had a pretty solid lineup too. EA, they had their games along with Interplay. Yeah, it looks like every company had at least one or two decent games. Mule League Hockey. These games are so much fun. For Nintendo, what is it? Oh, Trade West. Namco. They had a bit of a showing. Data East. I remember Data East was kind of a big deal back then. High Seas Havoc. I always thought this game was pretty cool. I think they talk about it in one of the later issues, but kind of another Sonic clone, but was pretty good. Sunsoft. Ariel the Acrobat. They were doing World Heroes port. And then Acclaim, they had some stuff here. NBA Jam, Mortal Kombat. NBA Jam is hella fun. And let's see, in Virgin here. So they have Robocop vs. Terminator, Cool Spot. There was a Dan Marino football. I didn't know about that. Terminator on Sega CD. Yeah, so they had some pretty good stuff here. Aladdin on the Sega Genesis. That's a great game. Hmm. ActRaiser 2. That game was a really cool looking game and cool music to it too. Yeah, that was a lot of stuff. Yeah, everyone had at least one or two great games. Dragon Slayer. Lots of stuff here. Secret of Mana. Takara, so they had some ports coming over to the Super Nintendo. Ren and Stimpy. This game on the Sega Genesis was really fun. I enjoyed that game on the Sega Genesis. This game right here. Um, so let's see, I'll read here. So Dolmark showed a lightning fast and smooth F1 racing game for the Sega Genesis titled Formula One Grand Prix. Man, is it fast! And Harrier Assault for Sega CD is also in the works and looking good. But yeah, but Formula One, it was just a really fun racing game and just super fast too. Also, um, yeah, one of my more favorite racing games on the fourth generation. Just a great game. Sophie. So they had it as the best shooter, best other or fighter. I'm not sure what that says. Tournament fighters, best action, Gunstar Heroes, and best sports, Mule League Hockey. Okay, so each editor was given their takes. Yeah, and the Graveyard. So back in early 1992, when solid Sega action titles were as scarce as a one-legged man at a butt kicking contest, Game Arts unleashed Alicia Dragoon, and Sega of America quickly acquired it. And with no print or media hype, released it just after the January show. Having always kept us on up on import release, uh, I grabbed I quickly grabbed a copy, knowing it would be a great game because number one, it was Game Arts. It was a Game Arts title, and number two, um, it spent over 18 months in development. I was right. Although the game passed by with no real magazine support or hype, it remains to this day one of the best action titles available for the Sega Genesis. Alicia Dragoon is also one of the few games that features a female lead. The attack mechanism Alicia uses is also very unique. She possesses a lightning attack that can be powered up more and more throughout the game and has fluctuating gauge that determines the strength of the charge. Alicia can also power up and use 3 different creatures which have their own attacks and stick by her side to the bitter end. Bottom of the grave, if you don't already own Alicia Dragoon, go find one. Yeah, maybe one of these days I do gotta play this. Definitely do want to try this out. We'll give it a good honest shot. Like I said, I've played around with it a bit, but not too much. So again, you can kind of see the prices here of games too also back then. CD games were cheaper. But quarter crunchers. So Samurai Showdown. So as we all know, SNK is on one hell of a fighting game spree. It seems they likely won't be content and they have unseated Street Fighter II as a reigning champ. See, the bad news is that will never happen. The character recognition that Street Fighter II possesses comes along once in a lifetime. A true Street Fighter II pro believes he knows this character. All the special effects in the world won't change that. With Samurai Showdown, that's exactly what you get. To my trained fighting eye, this looks like the best fighting game of all time. It is to say the least stunning. The backgrounds look so real, you'll feel like you're watching a movie as the camera zooms way out and then way in, twice that of art fighting. Then there's a character whose artwork and animation is incredible that I still never seen anything like it. It's like watching a drama play out on the screen. I won't even begin to tell you who they are and what they do. I'll save that for next month's review. But one guy, I swear, grabs you, pulls your head into its butt, and unleashes a mighty brown cloud. No joke. I would buy a Neo Geo for this game. It's that good. If this one doesn't snap the Street Fighter II crowd from their trance, nothing will. So SNK, can we get back in on the Hornet to Alpha and give the final word? Roll out Magician Lore 2. We're back in action. Yeah, Samurai Showdown is great. Really enjoyed that series. But Konami looks like they had a little fighting game here. I don't remember much of it, so apparently probably didn't do too well. Okay, so other stuff. Okay, so again, I'll just kind of leave this up here, and I'll kind of skim through to see if there's anything that catches my eye here. Let's see. So the Atari Jaguar was being announced. Talking about some games that are going to be in development for it. So Tempest 2000, Cybermorph, Alien vs. Predator, and Jaguar Formula One Racing. Let's see. They're talking about a Sega CD or Sega Genesis 2 and CD2. And they're talking about how Lunar, the Silver Star story, is coming out to the Sega CD. Well, here in the States. Oh, and okay, so here's something. So, and lastly, Gamefan had the opportunity to sit in with and have a powwow about next year's Sega Channel debut. Here's the deal. Similar to premium cable channels, you will pay a low monthly fee, $15 to $20, to gain 24-hour access to around 50 games a month, including previews, a couple of levels on a working title, and a new and exciting upcoming products. This will allow you to get a good idea of what games you want to buy and keep from getting stuck with a dud. Once a game previews, it will not show up on the channel again until sometime after its release. That way, the channel will help fuel retail sales rather than annihilate them. At the same time, new users can get a look at the many titles available now for the Genesis. This takes the guesswork out of buying an older title. On the other hand, you can play previously released titles for as long as you want. You can even save one game, so RPGs are feasible. If you're not dying to own the game, at least you still want to check it out. Yeah, at least you still get to check it out when it comes along in the cycle. Also featured will be gameplay tips, news, contests, and promotions. To receive the Sega channel, subscribers will be issued a special tuner decoder that plugs in the Genesis cartridge slot and attaches to the television cable. A menu appears on the screen, allowing users to select the game, preview, or other programming material. The selected game is ready in minutes and plays identically to the cartridge version. You want my opinion? Retail sales on Genesis take a huge blow and sink drastically. Only the best games see good numbers, Sonic, Street Fighter 2, etc. Many third-party companies either change formats or fold. Only the strong survive. Mom and pop retailers fall flat, like at a rates convention, and kids are constantly here. I'm not buying you that game. I got you the Sega channel, didn't I? Ultimately, CD-ROM and 32-bit will take over, and 60-bit Sega becomes nothing more than a relic you can pass the time with for $20 a month. Huh. Interesting. Kind of remind you of anything with Game Pass? So even then, a service like, at least this editor's opinion, is kind of talking about how a lot of people are feeling about Game Pass nowadays, right? Where it just cannibalizes a lot of potential sales out there outside of like the big heavy hitters. So, I mean, that was kind of the thought back then, and it's pretty much is now still as well too. So that was an interesting take there. So, CD or not to CD? That is the question. Nintendo may be around to do something very, very smart. Our sources say that rather than develop an expensive new hardware, Nintendo may install a new RAM chip along with the new 32-bit CPU into its cartridges that can store up to a gigabyte, 1,000 megs of memory, which would nullify the need for a CD. Think about it. CD scratch, skip, if bumped, and players have moving parts subject to wear. A new system card or cartridge upgrade, however, would allow programmers all the space they want while continuing to work on a development system that they are familiar with. And given the Super NES's incredible sound and music or sound and graphics capabilities, extra gobs of memory rather than expensive new hardware or expensive new system may be the answer. I like it. Huh. So Nintendo they were really trying to stay away as much as possible from CDs up to this point. In the meantime, you can start looking forward to Super Metroid, which has been confirmed for a December release. The scoop so far is 16 megs with multiple suits and huge character that is amazingly fluid. Look for Metroid along with two all-new Nintendo SFX titles to debut at Japan's Nintendo show this August. Let's see. And lastly, while I'm sure many of you are anxiously awaiting the new 16-bit Mario All-Stars 4-in-1 cart, well, keep your fingers crossed as we hear they may be working the same magic on Zelda 1 and 2, the greatest NES RPGs of all time. Nintendo, we like your style. That never ended up happening. So I know there was like a kind of like a remake of some sort, like a remaster of the original Zelda on the Nintendo Satellaview, I think it was called, which is my understanding something similar to the Sega channel. I don't know the full specifics of it, but it wasn't like a widespread release as it was only in Japan. And like I said, on that very kind of um, limited service that they had. Oh, what is this? This funny looking handheld shown at the recent CES can play Super NES, NES, Genesis, and Turbo Carts and will supposedly be operational at the Winter Show in Las Vegas. Could the ultimate handheld be around the corner? Active Enterprises says yes. I never heard much about that, so maybe it just didn't take off. The... Check this out. Zelda on CDI? Yes, it's true. Zelda and Mario will be released for the CDI later this year. Eastorm got a chance to play Zelda at the CES and said it was like playing a cartoon. We all know that was kind of a dud, though. No, these are kind of long letters. I don't think I'll read these here. You can pause the video there if you wanted to read any of these here. Let's see. I'll just read this one here. So, dear Postmeister, there are advertisements out there for upcoming Sega Activator. Not many of these advertisements tell of how exactly it works and its in-depth use. They say it can be used with Streets of Rage 2. But I don't think it'll be able to do skate head spin or spinning attack. How, if at all, will the activator allow us to do such complicated moves? By the way, I'm from South Dakota, and the first time I had a chance to see your magazine was at the beginning of May. One last thing to add: I love it. See, as everyone knows, I'm crazy, but even I, although I look sexy in tights, would never enter a circle, then squat as if to launch a turd, and then start punching and kicking into the air, which is exactly what what I've seen the activator demo squad doing at the show. Actually, it's not that simple. The moves you perform must be within the correct zone, like low, medium, and high punch or kick. It's all very acrobatic. Imagine an RPG, you'd wear out the rug. I don't know, I guess if you want to mix exercise with gameplay, this is just the right thing. But all the gamers I know consider finding the remote uh, all the exercise they can handle. That's funny. And we're coming to the end of the issue here. So, this is when Van Damme was still doing a lot of movies. I did think I said this one. I think it was in the trailers of this one and all, where they had that Born on the Bayou song by Creedence Clearwater. Good stuff. But, yep, so that's the end of this magazine here. And so, yeah, I mean, another great month for gaming during this time. The Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo and the console wars. A lot of great stuff. Starting to hear more rumblings of what's going to come around the corner with the next generation stuff. And yeah, like I've said before, very memorable time during this stretch here in the fourth generation. And yeah, that was a fun little look back at what was going on then. So we will see you in the next one where we'll be reviewing, let's see, that would be issue 10. Have a good one.